Okay, class, today we're going to talk about finding volume of a pyramid and a cone. Okay, first question I have for you though is, what is the basic formula for finding volume of a pyramid or a cone? Well, if you look at your formula chart, it shows that our formula is volume is equal to 1/3 capital B H. Our formula for a prism is just capital BH. Okay, but for finding that of a pyramid or a cone, we know it's going to be 1/3 that, because we're going to divide it into 3 parts. It takes 3 pyramids in order to make the same volume as the corresponding prism. And we know that this capital B stands for area of the base. So we look at the base of the shape, and if it's a rectangular base, then I'm going to substitute length times width in for this base. If it is a triangle, then I'm going to substitute in base times height divided by 2. If it's a circle, I'm going to substitute in pi r squared. Okay, so let's see if we can do a few questions real quick. Okay, here's the first one. It says, find the volume of this figure. Well, the first thing that we look at, or first question we ask ourselves is this a prism or a pyramid? Well, we know this one's going to be a pyramid because it's only got one base, and it comes to a point, which we call a vertex. So we know this one's going to be a pyramid. So we know we're going to start with our basic formula of volume is equal to 1/3 capital B H. Now we need to look at the base itself, and we find out that this base is a rectangle. Okay, so that means that I'm going to plug into this capital B, I'm going to plug in the formula for a rectangle. So volume is equal to 1/3 length times width, because that's our basic shape for our basic formula for finding area of a rectangle, times the height of the figure. Now, I want you to write that formula down because it gives you instructions as to what to look for in finding the volume of this shape. So now we begin doing that. Volume is equal to 1/3 times. And now we look for length and width of the base. That's going to be the rectangle part here. Now I know that's a parallelogram there, but that is a rectangle on this particular shape. So we know its length is 9 and its width is 7. So we've got 9 times 7 times. Now, the height of a figure in a three-dimensional object like this is always going to be defined as the perpendicular distance from the base to the farthest point away from the base. So that happens to be the farthest point is going to be that little dot right there, that vertex, and it's going to be directly above the center of this base. Now we need to understand that idea because they may give you distances like this, which are also a height, but it's not the height that we need in order to find volume. This is a height that we would need called a slant height that we would need for surface area. So we have to be able to tell the difference. So the height I need is the vertical one that goes straight to the center from the center of the base. So we have an 8. So at this point in time, we then turn to our calculator. Okay, so we turn to our calculator here, and we multiply 9 times 7 times 8, and we end up with 504. Now the biggest mistake people make on a problem like this is they will forget to divide by 3. So we've got to remember to do a divide by 3. So divide by 3, which is what 1/3 tells us to do. Just divide it by 3. And we end up with 168, and in this case feet cubed. And that's how you do a rectangular pyramid. Now let's try a triangular pyramid. So this one, we start off the same way. Volume is equal to 1/3 capital BH. Okay, but this time, instead of substituting length times width in our base, we have a triangle for a base. So we're going to substitute in the formula for a triangle, which is base times height divided by 2 times the overall height of the figure. So now we plug in our information. Volume is equal to 1/3. Now this base and height is going to be that of the triangle. So we highlight our triangle here. Now our base and height of the triangle are always going to be touched by a right angle. So here's our base, and here's the height of that triangle. So we know it's going to be 12 times 23. I'm going to divide that by 2 because I need the triangle. Then I'm going to multiply that by the height of the figure, which is from the center of the base to the farthest point away from that base, which is 17. So now we, again, turn to our calculator and we start with our triangle. 12 times 23 divided by 2 equals, okay, so that's our triangle. So now I'm going to multiply that by 17. Okay. That gets this whole shape if it were a prism. But now because it's a pyramid, I now need to divide it by 3. And I end up with 782 yards cubed. And that's how you find the volume of a triangular pyramid. Now one last shape, let's do a cone. Now again, same thing. This problem starts off the same way, 1/3 capital BH. But this time, because we're dealing with a circular base, we're going to plug in pi r squared into our base times the height. So again, we plug in our information. Volume is equal to 1/3 times 3.14 times the radius. So I come over here to my circle, and the radius is from the center of the circle to the circle itself, which is 7. So if they gave you all the way across, you have to divide that by 2 in order to find a radius. And we have to write the radius twice, so 7 times 7 times, and then the height is from the center of that circle all the way to that vertex, which is 8. Okay. So we go to our calculator again. We do 3.14 times 7 times 7 times 8. We end up with 1,230.88, but I need to divide that by 3. This would be an answer for the cylinder if this were a full shape, but I only want 1/3 of it, so divide by 3, and I end up with 410.2933333333. But what we're going to do is we are going to round to the nearest tenth. Okay, so if we're going to round to the nearest tenth, all these 3's I don't need to pay attention to. I just need to stop at the hundredths place. Now, if this second number, this number in the hundredths place, is 5 or more, I'm going to make this 2 one more. If it's less than 5, I keep it the same. Now, since it's a 9, I'm going to bump this 2 to a 3. So my answer would be 410.3 millimeters cubed. So what you find out is that no matter what shape you're doing, whether it be a rectangular pyramid, whether it be a triangular pyramid, or whether it be a cone, we start off with the same basic formula, 1/3 capital BH. The only thing that we change is whatever our base happens to be, we plug in that specific formula. If it's a rectangular pyramid, we plug in length times width. Triangular, base times height divided by 2. A cone, pi r squared. So I hope this helps. That's how you find volume of a pyramid and a cone.